Great. I think we're going to get started. Thank you everyone for joining to today's information session. This is the last of four information sessions regarding the Business Builder Grant. And we'll be covering the details in this slideshow, but just want to mention that applications for this first funding round will close on April 7th. I will encourage everyone, if you haven't already started on your application, to kind of go ahead and look at the RFA and go through the eligibility quiz. But with that, we'll get started and I'll pass it over to my colleague Janice Sproul to kick us off.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Max has mentioned, we are going to focus on introduction to the Northeast Food Business Center leadership, the overview of the center, basics of the Business Builder sub-award program, and then we will move into frequently asked questions and an open Q&A forum. So just know, and I've seen some of the chat already, the session is being recorded and will be made available online. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat and we will answer them during the open forum if we are able to do so. Right. So just a program summary for the regional food business centers. It is a USDA program. There are 12 of them across the country. There's 11 regional centers and then one national center. The Northeast Center, our geography, goes from Washington, D.C. up to Maine. There are some counties in Pennsylvania and Maryland, the westernmost counties, that are actually part of a different center, and that would be the Appalachian Center. So if you have specific questions about the geography, those counties are listed on our website. The center consists of a collaborative framework that I work with the NASDA Foundation. We are the administrative and fiduciary lead. Buffalo Go Green is one of our core partners, as well as Cornell University's Center for Regional Economic Advancement. That's CREA. Amanda Pittman from CREA is on with us today, so I'm glad to have her join us. And then we also are working directly with the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets, as well as the Maine Department of Ag, Conservation and Forestry. Our center objectives, and these are for the most part the same objectives that all of the centers have. We're interested in creating a regional network within the Northeast, as well as with the other centers nationwide. We are interested in increasing and really want to focus on increasing the amount and range of regionally grown food products and businesses. And so our goal here is to provide financial support to technical assistance providers, as well as providing financial support for businesses to increase their capacity and to help us increase the capacity of the regional food supply chain. Which is the main reason you are here today, to learn about that Business Builder capacity building program. Also, we are interested in really building sustainability in the center. So all of our activities are focused around how can this program continue as we move forward and the program ends. All right, for the timeline for Business Builder applications, they did open February 24th. They will close in a week and a half. That is April 7th. Okay, we have offered 4 information sessions. This is the 4th one. They have all been recorded. We have, as businesses join us, we have added more FAQs to our to our website. So you'll be able to either watch the webinars or see those FAQs if you have questions that we can't answer, and we will continue adding. But back to the timeline. Again, applications close April 7th at 5 p.m. We will not accept late applications. So Max mentioned earlier, if you haven't started, please do so. There are some requirements that and some things that you need to do ahead of time. We anticipate announcing the subawards in July when projects can commence in August. There are 3 funding tracks, and the first one, sorry, my dogs are running. The first one is equipment. The second is business development. And the third is kind of it focuses on a combination of track 1 and 2. Track 3 is more or less product and market expansion. So really building that capacity. Track 1 may be just, hey, I have some equipment that I need to purchase just to help me to get to the next point. Track 2, that business development, I need some training. I need some food safety training, some financial assistance training, and business plan development. So that's kind of where that falls in. The differences are going to be the amount of award, and track 1 and track 2 are for farm and food businesses who have an annual sales revenue or an annual revenue of $350,000 or less. Okay, so that's our definition of a small business. That does include a nonprofit. So nonprofits are eligible. And then track 3 is going to be for small and mid-size, and so that cap is at $1 million in annual revenue. And then as far as the duration of the projects, you have up to 24 months to complete them. Funding uses that are not allowable really includes the purchasing of land, buildings, or real estate. Construction, demolition, or major rehabilitation of any building, structure, or land. So you're really focusing on that ground disturbing activity, anything that's going to cause what is considered a NEPA review. And so it's a lot of detail, but construction is a no. General purpose or non-specialized equipment, such as office furnishings, and then anything else that is considered general purpose. And so then there are production related costs, such as seeds, fertilizer, or other production inputs. Understand that this Business Builder Award, the funds are meant to be used for post-harvest activities until sales, okay? Production related costs, seeds, fertilizers, and other production inputs are not allowable. Okay, we have some resources to help you apply. It uses QR code. It'll take you to the website. It'll show you the RFA. So we do have the application launch webinar recording. Also mentioned are the 3 previous information sessions that have come before this one. That RFA that has some information and some other resources, including the USDA AMS terms and conditions. So it's what we have to follow as a center and as an awardee. And then as subawardees of our program, you would also are subject to those terms and conditions. And the scoring rubric is also available. So you can kind of see what the weight on the different questions are in the application. Max has highlighted on here the obtaining a unique entity ID, a UEI. That is obtained on sam.gov. There are YouTube videos, there are items, resources available to assist you in understanding how to obtain that. But that has to be obtained before your application is submitted, or you have to be able to show us proof that you have registered for one of those numbers, because sometimes it can take a while. So that would be required to be uploaded in the application. Again, more resources, the application checklist, frequently asked questions. The Community Hub has some technical assistance providers listed in the directory. And those TA providers can assist you with some services if you need help writing a grant, and so there are some opportunities there if you have specific questions. And then any general inquiry, please email northeastrfbc@nasda.org. And also, please remember to subscribe to our Regional Food Business Center newsletter, and that way you can be up to date on all of the goings on. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you, Jana. So we've received a number of frequently asked questions that we just want to answer before opening the floor to everyone. So with that, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Jade Umberger.
Yeah, hi there. My name is Jade. I saw a lot of PA folks in the chat. I'm based in Pittsburgh, which is technically outside of the Northeast Regional Food Business Center area, but excited that you all are here and looking forward to seeing all of your applications. Let's get into some questions. What are the differences between the three funding tracks? Track 1, special equipment, is only for that, special equipment. If you need help with installing or getting trained on that special equipment, that can also go into Track 1, but your big funding item here is special equipment only. Track 2 is business development, so things that aren't really tangible, an actual item, an actual piece of equipment. Things like market analysis, things like training, food safety training, creation of HACCP plans, business development, making a business plan. And those two tracks, Track 1 and Track 2, are open to small businesses only. That's Northeast Regional Food Business Center's definition, which means it's a revenue of $350,000 or less. That's gross, and that is per year. In the last tax season that you can show us. And then the first one, special equipment, is $25,000 to $50,000 per award. So that special equipment plus any training or installation should be between $25,000 and $50,000. Track 2, business development, is $15,000 to $25,000. So any sort of training or assistance that you might need, that's Track 2, $15,000 to $25,000. Track 3, we open it up to mid-sized businesses, which the center's definition is $1 million or less. So if you make over $350,000 and less than 1 million, you are eligible for Track 3. And that is businesses, nonprofits, any entity that is that revenue. And then Track 3 is both Track 1 and Track 2 sort of combined. So I saw a question in the chat about they're not sure what they should be applying for. They have maybe a refrigerated van, some staff time, and other things in order to expand their business. That seems perfectly like a Track 3 project. So if you have a big hairy goal that you're trying to do where you need equipment and staff time and installation and maybe a market analysis, that's your Track 3. And that the reason that we have bumped up that award 50,000 to 100,000 is because we want those bigger projects in Track 3. And that's the differences between the three tracks. Oh, and I've seen a couple questions. You can only apply to one track at a time. None can be combined. If you're combining Track 1 and Track 2, then you're applying for Track 3. Can I use a business builder grant to improve my farming operations, like planting and cultivating? No. So all activities and expenses must be used for post-harvest activities only. So after you've picked the tomato, after you've plucked the berry, after you've taken the oyster out of the cage, after those cattle hooves have met the trailer, things that are post-harvest are the only things that we can fund. So things like processing of any food, storage of any food. I saw someone asked about storage. So if you need to expand your storage systems, including refrigerated vans, things like aggregation, distribution, marketing, retail, all of the things after you have harvested your product, you can apply for. Can I receive an upfront payment for the award? So the center has a default method of reimbursement. So you would have to turn in receipts, invoices to us, and then we would get the money back to you. There is a part on the application that if your business doesn't have the cash flow for this, we can talk about it further. So in the application, you can say, I don't really have the cash flow for this. I might be interested in advanced payments, and we can have further conversations about that. What are some examples of items and activities that are eligible for funding? Special use equipment. So this is really track one, right? Track one or track two, or I'm sorry, track one or track three. So special use equipment can include wash and pack stations, refrigerated vans, food safety upgrades, cold storage units, ice machines, grading equipment, hoppers and hoists, anything that you use that is an equipment or material that you need post-harvest. And then services can include anything that you're expanding your business. And this is track two and track three. Anything that you need business-wise, business development-wise to expand your business, things like business strategy, supply chain analysis, risk assessment, food safety training, like I said, HACCP plans, value chain coordination, market analysis, product development, and even staff time. And this can be for you as a business owner or for your staff. If they need help if they need to be trained on something, if they need to be able to develop a recipe, if you need to be able to develop a recipe, all of this is included. And these are just examples. We've been seeing some really creative stuff. So I heard someone is interested in a frozen meat vending machine somewhere. So get creative. Let's see what you got. What are some examples of businesses that are eligible for this funding? So any producer, that includes farmers, ranchers, fisheries, aquaculture. If you're producing food for human consumption, you are eligible. Processors, distributors, aggregators, retail outlets, grocery stores, restaurants, institutions, nonprofits, and cooperatives are all eligible. All right, and now we're going to open it up to all the questions that I see in the chat too. Max, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jade. And thank you to my team. I see we've already kind of answered a number of these questions, but want to get started. This is kind of more for my team's reference, but starting with questions from 1:10 p.m. And I think we're going to kind of go through these efficiently. And so if there are any questions after that we didn't answer, please feel free to reach out to that email, which we'll put up at the end again. But let's start off with a question that GE Washington asked, which is about the availability of funds and kind of what the status is there.
I can answer that. I was wool gathering though and answering questions. So I want to make sure that you have asked about the status of the funding. Okay. So as of right now, we are business as usual. The Northeast Center and all of the centers across the nation are working, are actively working. Yes, there is a funding freeze, but that's slightly different at this point. We are talking about applications or a program with Business Builder that we would not award until August. And so we fully anticipate having funds at that point.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jenna, for that. Another question that we received is someone who's looking to convert a small outbuilding into a wash and pack station with cooler. Is that permissible? There would be a small amount of construction inherent in the installation.
This sounds to me like minor installation. If you are not doing anything that needs a NEPA review, if you aren't disturbing any ground, then this, without any more information, this seems like it is eligible.
Great. And I think there's a question right below. I don't know, Jade, if you want to answer, just what does minor improvement look like?
Yes. So this, we've had a couple questions about moving walls around. So things that happen maybe inside a building that aren't anything like major, things that are confined to a smaller part of the building. Things like installation of equipment, if you need to buy some hammers or some nails for that. If you need to paint a wall to make it to create a new area, that is minor improvements. So as long as you're not breaking anything down, disturbing any ground, that's minor. And I know that that gets a little fishy. So if you have specific examples, we would always be happy to answer.
Perfect. All right, we have another question from Sabrina about kind of the breakdown between different regional food business centers. I think this is a really good question because a number of businesses have operations both in the Southeast Center, the Appalachia Center, or other centers around the nation. So the quick and dirty answer is that you can apply to any regional food business center business builder grant. You can apply to multiple ones. The caveat is that you can't receive more than $100,000 in funds across different regions. So let's say, for example, you're successful in receiving awards from the Northeast Center for $50,000, and then you apply to Appalachia, their Business Builder Center, you would only be able to receive $50,000 from them. So we kind of work together in that way, but I would say that yeah, you're able to apply to different ones, but kind of look where the geographic footprint is of your operations and see what makes sense for you. I would also refer to everyone to the geographic scope webpage on our website, which kind of tells you the county breakdown for Maryland and Pennsylvania in terms of where our Northeast Center covers versus the Appalachia Center. All right, we have another question from Melanie who asks about kind of the annual revenue threshold. What if you're a new business and there's no data to pull from?
A new business is absolutely eligible. We do not ask for proof of your income. We trust you to apply if you know that you are eligible. And so if there's no data to pull from, that's totally fine.
Great. All right. Another question is regarding equipment under $5,000. So is that eligible if you kind of piece together multiple pieces of equipment under 5K?
Yes, absolutely. So, well, is this a question of eligibility or where something might fall within the budget?
The full question is, can the grant be used for specific kitchen equipment under $5,000?
Yes. So technically, equipment by USDA definition is $5,000 or more. We do consider materials, which is USDA's definition of basically equipment that's less than $5,000. We consider that equipment. So you can, yeah, package that together and put it in the special equipment or in track 1 or track 3.
Perfect. All right. Next question is someone considering track 1 and sees that it says storage as one of the eligible activities. Can you elaborate kind of on what storage might look like for that track?
Yeah, so a lot of our examples are things like refrigerator or cooler storage, refrigerated vans, that's more for distribution, but could be for storage. So if you need more space to store equipment or product that doesn't include building out a new building or building out a new part of your building, that is all eligible.
Perfect. All right. Another question is the RFA lists refrigerated vans or vehicles as an allowable expense, but does this include purchasing a regular van or trailer to be specially retrofitted to do washing and packaging, or must it be ready to use when purchased?
The retrofitting would make this this is kind of sticky. If the project is to retrofit a general purpose equipment, that's what so if you are just buying a regular truck, regular van, that is not allowable because that's general purpose equipment. And Jana, stop me if I'm wrong, but if part of the project is creating special purpose equipment from general equipment, that is allowable.
Okay, perfect. So another question is, if we get this funding and the funding is available the next round, can we still apply for another track? So the answer is yes. If you get an award, say 15,000 from track 2, and then you decide that you want to apply to track 1 for the next funding round, you're perfectly eligible to do that. Great. Another question is on special purpose equipment. So can you clarify what limitations apply for that? So for example, in the RFA, it says it must be used only for research, medical, scientific, or technical activities. So what does that kind of entail?
Yeah, if it has purpose for your goal of the grant, if it has a useful purpose, and can't really be used for things outside of the grant. So like the example there was a truck that's probably going to be used for other things, just a regular pickup truck. But if you have equipment that's special, that has a purpose within your grant goals that can't really be used for anything else, that is specialized equipment. I know that it seems like scientific, technical, but what we're asking for are technical projects, things that are technical to farms, food businesses. And so a lot of things that you might consider general purpose actually are special purpose when you put on the lens of the grant.
All right, another question we got from Madeline is, can a specially cut flower farm apply for this grant, or is it specifically edible? So that's a great question. The purpose of this grant is to support food products for human consumption. So unfortunately, a flower farm would be ineligible to apply. Michael asks, can grants for track 3 be used for minor infrastructure upgrades, such as electrical upgrades to support new kitchen equipment?
Yes. That's an easy one. Yes.
Yeah. So I know, Jade, you spoke about this a bit earlier, but we have a question. Are these reimbursable funds, meaning we have to cover expenses up front, then get reimbursed? Can you kind of explain that process?
Yes, yeah. So the default method is reimbursement. If you are in the application, you can elect on one question to say you might not have the cash flow, and we can talk about that further if you have an individual need. But the default is reimbursement. This looks like quarterly reimbursements. So on a quarterly basis, you will have the opportunity to turn in invoices. Excuse me, geez. You will have the opportunity to turn in invoices, receipts, and then we will get back to you within. It says in the RFA, and it's not on the top of my head, but within either 30 or 60 business days. I believe it's 30. Get the funding back to you.
And then I think another kind of baseline question is, are there geographic eligibility requirements?
Yes, so you must be producing, processing, distributing, storing, aggregating, selling food within the Northeast. So your business specifically, and I think someone in the chat said something about being in one part of Pennsylvania but serving another part of Pennsylvania. And so yeah, if your business itself, the location is outside of the Northeast Regional Food Business Center service area, you can apply if you have activities within our area.
Perfect. Another question we got from Melanie is, do organizations or multiple farms applying together make for better candidates for the bigger awards?
Rubric doesn't give any points to cooperatives, to businesses working together. However, I could see that businesses working together, a reviewer could see that as a bigger impact within the Northeast, depending on what opportunities that partnership gives you. It could mean a reviewer sees a better shovel-ready project. Well, shovel-ready, that's not. Or like a impactful project and like ready to go project for the business. So no, not on paper, not in the rubric, but I could see where there would be a benefit.
All right, we have another question, which is, that someone's feasibility study is already underway but falls squarely in track 2, can they still apply, or will the grant only apply to projects that start in August or later? That's another great question.
Yeah, we can only reimburse activities and expenses that start when your contract starts. So that we would not be able to reimburse a feasibility study that's already happening.
Another question is on marketing expenses and whether they fit into services, both digital and traditional marketing.
Yes, so marketing services, either contracting out for help for a market analysis, things like virtual ads, things like printer, paper flyers, those are eligible as long as it is advertising a specific product or line of products and not your business.
Another question is on eligibility. John asks, is a spice company eligible? They focus on blending and grinding of dry products.
Yep, that's food.
Great. All right. Allison asks, what is the total amount available for all grants awarded under this program? Is there a specific amount or percent of the total awards that will be allocated among each track?
Yes, and I don't have that off the top of my head. But
Yeah, it's for the first funding round, it's $10 million that we plan to allocate.
mm,
But it says in the RFA that we anticipate distributing around 60% to track 3 and 20% each to tracks 1 and 2. But that's subject to change depending on what kind of applications we receive and what number of applications we receive. Kathy asks, Kathy is supporting a farm-to-table restaurant that uses local farm products for their menu. And so they're a restaurant and just want to confirm that restaurants can apply. So yes, restaurants can certainly apply. And it doesn't just have to be a producer that is eligible for this grant. For track 3, Lisa asks if they can put a post-harvest field trip program together and get that funded.
that seems like agritourism, and that is eligible. Jana?
Said no, because it's not
Oh.
focusing on the sales and increasing sales and revenue of regionally grown products and food products.
Yep. Thanks, Jana. Yeah, that is not food you can eat. It's a service that the business would be expanding into.
All right. Michael asks, and I think we went over this at the beginning, but good to just give a run through again. What are the items that need to be done ahead of time before submitting applications? So after getting off this webinar, if you haven't taken any steps now, what should you do?
Max has put together a fantastic checklist. First and foremost, I would check and see if your business has a unique entity identifier. That's through sam.gov. And if you are already an entity, you probably have a number already. This is different from your EIN. We had this question on the last one. Different from your EIN. It's a UEI that the government tracks specific grant funding from federal programs. So if you're already an entity, you should have one, but double check, triple check to make sure. If you are a business owner who is not an entity, you are able to get one with your social security number, but there is a process if you don't already have one. And so that would be my first thing. Check to make sure you have a UEI. If you don't, then get that started. And then I would read through the application, read through the RFA, and reach out to us with any questions.
Great. All right, we have another question or two questions about revenue. So the first is for nonprofits. Are they eligible to apply using their program budget as kind of the revenue consideration? So we'll start with that question.
Yes, so we have made the decision to, for nonprofits specifically, understanding that there are programs that have very separate budgets from one another within the nonprofit world. You can use a specific program's budget instead of the overall organizational budget, as long as the program does not feed into the overall organization, and as long as the grant funding will not feed into the overall organization, our grant funding.
Perfect. So another question that we ask is, does the business have to already exist? And I'm guessing this kind of fits into that new business question, but this person is in the process of opening their business, but it's an extension of another existing business. Should they apply with the business that was recently launched or the existing business?
That is up to you. Startups are eligible and wouldn't receive any dings like in the rubric or anything. So that's totally up to the person applying.
Another question is whether batteries for backup power for cold storage during outages would be eligible.
If you can make a case for your need for that energy source, yes, that's eligible.
Great. All right. James asks if consulting costs associated with planning a processing facility would be eligible for track 2.
Yes, I'm gonna ask for Jano's confirmation on this, but because it's a processing facility, you wouldn't be able to ask for contracting services for a greenhouse or something where you would be growing food. But because it's a processing facility that's post-harvest, yes, that is eligible.
Great.
And I
All
see
right,
Jana
Kate.
saying yes.
Yeah. Kate asks if we're installing a new walk-in freezer that requires a concrete pad, if they pay for the concrete pad as not part of the grant, can they put the cost of the freezer on their grant application?
Unfortunately, no. USDA tells us that if any part of the grant is requires a NEPA review, then we cannot fund that project.
Yeah, great. All right. There's a question about track 3 and kind of that mix between technical assistance and equipment. So are you able to mix the funding requests for the two needs? Like, are you able to apply in track 3 for both a piece of equipment and technical assistance?
Yes.
Okay.
And they don't specifically have to be related either. That's the difference, I think, between track 1 and track 3. Track 1, the services or training that you are applying for along with equipment must be directly related. In track 3, you can have a couple projects going on that all are expanding your business. And the technical assistance or business development or training does not directly have to be tied to equipment.
Great. All right. Victoria asks for track 3, would the purchase of a shed be permissible to store produce that has been harvested?
Unfortunately, no. That's our answer for anything that is being sort of set on the ground. Even if it's a pre-built shed, assumedly you'll have to build some sort of, if not concrete pad, you'll have to put some gravel in, and that would necessitate a review.
Great. All right. Sabrina asks about getting notified for when the Appalachia Regional Food Business Builder Grant period opens. I'll defer to Jana on that one.
Yeah, just like we have a QR code and a website, the Appalachian Center has information on their website, and so you can sign up for their newsletter as well. We can drop that in the chat in just a second.
Great. All right. Sarah asks, some of our application is based on Commercial Kitchen that is still waiting for RFSI funds from last year's awards to be released. Should we talk about this holdup in application or apply as though those funds are coming?
What's that?
So this is this is kind of a sticky question. Jana, if you have anything to add here, but I would say You would need to be applying for a fully separate project. So within the commercial kitchen, I'm assuming like expansion, you've applied for one thing. You can apply for that same like overall project, but the grant funds would need your application would have to be for separate funding. So for example, if you are expanding with a commercial kitchen and you need a 3 compartment sink and you've applied for RFSI funding for that, then you would have to apply for a separate equipment. So walk-in cooler for Regional Food Business Center. And yeah, I would definitely add it to that would not be like a ding in the application. Um, but yeah, I would address it within the application. But Jana, I'm trying to think.
Are you taking real people talking or should I be quiet?
Is
Oh,
it
do you have more
is it-
information? Is
Yeah.
is this your question?
Yeah, it's my question.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I'd be applying for it for sort of operations that, the assumption was like this kitchen's going to be in completion over this year. Had those funds been already distributed? And so this is more like operations staff, business expansion, product development. I still really, really want to get to that point, and this is ideal. But we have not been able to get any really clarification on those funds.
Yeah, I think that the two things here are so yes, this seems like fully separate funding. You're asking for a fully separate project. But if this project, I'm trying to think of the word, if this project hinges on the RFSI funding, if you don't get that RFSI funding, then you can't apply for a project for this project. Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it's based on many multifaceted operations, like those like hairy projects. So I think it would be fine because it applies to every part of it. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So if you don't get that RFSI funding and it would impact the project that you're applying to for the center, then you would not be eligible. Then it would not be allowable. But if it's fully separate and can happen independently, you're good to go.
Great, thanks.
Thanks for speaking
Great.
up too.
So Judith asks, if our project starts in June, when will we be notified if we've been awarded the grant?
We estimate that we will be letting folks know in August.
Great. Another question is, would the labor for the electrician or specialized installers and other team members be eligible for funding when installing specialized equipment?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Another question is, will there be oral presentations or anything? Is it only written proposal? So it is only written proposal that will be considered in your evaluation.
If you want to upload a video, I don't know if that's an acceptable file type, but you can try.
Are there funds delegated to certain types of business entity type? Our entity type falls under primary value added production and processor, so we are not sure which to put under the primary entity type. Or does it not affect funding either way?
It would not affect funding.
Okay. Are the expenses associated with direct-to-consumer software eligible under track 1?
Ooh, that's a good question. In some cases, software is considered equipment. We might have to get back to you on this one.
Great. Gretchen asks, would I be able to apply for kitchen equipment for a kitchen that is not yet built out? We are early in the stages of standing up a shared use kitchen and will need many pieces of equipment. They already have a business plan and timeline for build out.
This kind of goes back to that. If you are waiting on other things, not just grants, but if you're waiting on other things in order to complete this grant project, it gets a little difficult to say. If
It can't be contingent on the completion of something else. So no, you cannot purchase equipment now for if you don't have the space to use it and start implementing. because that's the purpose of the program.
Thanks, Jana.
All right, question we got from Mike is, would a septic upgrade to handle additional volume be eligible? And before you all answer that, just want to say I'm going to put up the email to contact us. I see that there are some specific technical questions, so if we don't get to all of them, I would encourage you to reach out to northeastrfbc@nesda.org.
Can you repeat the question?
I can answer it if you want me to.
Oh, okay.
They asked for a septic upgrade to handle additional volume. No, that would not be eligible. That is ground disturbing. It would be considered construction in a way. And so we are not allowed to fund those types of projects.
Great. Karen asks where the rubric is located. So all of these materials that you see on your screen are located on the Business Builder website, which you can scan the QR code to get right to. Along with, the application checklist, RFA application portal. Carolyn asks, would automation equipment for a chocolate and fudge factory be eligible?
Oh, yeah, I think. Yes.
Yes.
That's fun.
Great. So let's see, I'm just seeing. Julie asks, are letters of support required? And someone asks, if they do want to upload one, how would they do so?
Letters of support are not required, and neither are quotes. Quotes, letters of support, supporting documentation like that is not required. However, if you do have it, you can upload it into, at sort of near the end of the application, there is a place where you can upload supporting documentation. We ask for some documentation is required for nonprofits, and so there is a space for you to upload documents and videos. Like I said, could be fun.
All right, Kathy asks, if your application asks for multiple purchases, would you ever partially fund a grant request, or would the center ever partially fund?
We do not anticipate partially funding. If it's in your budget, we will fund it. We're not going to cut anyone down. That said, we will be looking in our review if there are ineligible activities, if they are under 25% of if there are activities or expenses that are under 25% of the total project, we will allow you to be funded. We'll just take that off. So I say we won't cut anyone unless there's an unallowable activity that we find after the reviews have happened.
All right, Julia asks, in kind of estimating how long the project will take, should they include reporting time, or would the project just be installation time? If it's a wash and pack station.
What do you think, Jana?
Yeah, I would estimate the full time frame. Just understand that by the time, even if whatever time frame you provide and it closes out, there will still be a reporting period for us to close out the award. So it's not necessarily going to include your project timeline.
Great. All right, Julius asks, is it eligible to purchase a CoolBot, which would require a slab or foundation? So unfortunately, that would be considered construction, so it would not be eligible. Annie asks, we are a nonprofit that does supply chain coordination and infrastructure sharing, like a virtual food hub to increase local food business market and product expansion. We do not produce food ourselves. Are we still eligible?
From the information there, I don't believe so. Jana?
Ask the question again. I was looking for the
Yeah,
actual
it's the
thing
most
so I could read
recent
it.
one.
Sorry.
It's
Okay,
the most recent
all
one
the
at the
way at the
bottom. But it's a question about nonprofits that don't produce food ourselves, but are still involved in supply chain coordination and infrastructure sharing.
Yes, I would say that they are eligible.
So Sabrina asks, they're currently building a larger facility where they'll need approved items like equipment or an HACCP plan. So as long as they spend the money within 24 months, are they okay to apply?
Yes.
Great. Terry asks, Terry has the foundation for a prefab shed. Would the shed be eligible?
No, if there is a project, well,
If the foundation is there and it's a
yeah,
prefab shed and they're just placing it, yes, that's eligible.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you, so some of these questions with the CoolBot and if I know it requires a stable base, if you have the base already, yes, something that is pre-made can be placed there, but you can't do anything else to the ground.
All right. Thank you, Jeffrey, for your patience. I see your hand is up, and anyone who hasn't been able to ask a question, if you want to either raise your hand or add a question to the chat. I know we have 7 minutes left, so looking to make sure everyone's question has been answered. So, Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Max. And it looks like Jade is laser focused today. The question is, if an applicant is awarded a grant, and Jade touched on it earlier, and funds are spent, say in the third quarter, and receipts are submitted. Let's use track one as an example. And the ask was for 26,000 and 16,000 was spent in the third quarter and the other 10,000 was spent in the fourth quarter. Would those reimbursements be handled in those quarters that way?
Yes. Yes. So at the end of each quarter, we will do like a round of reimbursements where you'll submit your invoices, receipts, and then following that, you'll receive your reimbursement. So yes, if you spend 16,000 in one quarter, we would reimburse you for that. And then when you spend the 10,000 the next quarter, we would reimburse you then.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for the question. And thanks for joining again.
I'll ask Amy to come off mute as well, and then I see Carrie in the chat can't raise their hand, so feel free to come off mute after we've answered Amy's question.
So thank you for taking my question. So I looked at the PDF of the application that's online, and I may have confused myself somewhere along the way. But I had created a Word document with all the questions, and I'm noticing that the questions that are on the PDF for the application are different than the ones I seem to have put down in my Word document. So there's basically questions about how have you determined that this piece of equipment is the right piece of equipment for your business, impact on capacity, and describe how this piece of equipment, impacts your business. And then there's an impact on viability question. And then there's another question that says, asking essentially again, the viability of your business, but with the outcomes. And suddenly I'm like, where did I get those extra questions from? Was there a separate list of questions for people who are in track 3?
Oh, go ahead, Jana.
Yes. So a lot of the questions have conditional logic tied to them. So if you're looking at the application and you answer yes for a question, you might be asked an additional question, especially depending on the track that you have selected. Most of them are all the same. There may be slight differences. But then sometimes if you answer no, it will also ask you a different question. So it is that conditional logic model. And so it's really hard to put it in a PDF format or a Word document format.
Yeah, because I'm writing a grant for 2 different clients. One is in track 3 and one is in track 1. So I think that's where my confusion is. So I appreciate you answering the question.
Great. And Carrie, if you want to come off mute,
Yes.
And then I see we have one other individual who has their hand up, and I think that will be the last question of the day. So Carrie, if you want to come off mute first.
I'm off mute. You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Great, thanks. In regards to these questions about cash flow and about concerns with the funding being stopped and that, I guess questions of first, do we get like kind of demerited if we say we don't have enough cash flow? And okay, I guess I'll ask all at once then. Yeah, sure. Do we get demerited for that? And then what are the parameters for trying to get money up front versus reimbursed? And also, is maybe some of that going to change with the way things work? Like, are you guys going to become more lenient, or is there a possibility of becoming more lenient on those things because of the possibilities of us getting stuck holding the bag? Or
Yeah, so yeah, and all of that totally makes sense. We are and have been in contracts with other subawardees, so we're like going through all of that right now in the beginning of the year. No, you will not get penalized. You won't be scored any lower for saying no, you don't have the cash flow. Reviewers are not looking at that section. That's just for us as we're going through as fiduciary leads to see who might need a little extra help and to get those conversations moving. We, in the history of federal grant funding, if a program is told to stop work, they are paid up to that point that they're told to stop work. And so if there is a chance that that the program is told to stop work, history has shown us that we will be reimbursed. So we would go through that reimbursement process, and then we would get reimbursed for that and would reimburse the subawardees, if that makes sense. And so we would still be going through the process, asking for reimbursement, and then being able to get that money back to you. This would make it maybe a little bit more difficult for advanced payments, but yeah, we're having those conversations, and I'm not sure if I can speak too much to the leniency that we will have. We're trying to be as open and upfront as we can, and assessing our risk and asking subawardees to assess their risk as we move through this weird time.
Thank you.
Great. All right. We'll have the last question, but let me first say I'm assuming some people have to jump off it too. So for all those who have to leave, thank you again for joining this information session call. As a reminder, this recording will be available under the resources tab of the Northeast Regional Food Business Center. So if there are any other questions, feel free to reach out to us with northeastrfbc@nasa.org. If we didn't get to your question, feel free to reach out as well. If not, as a reminder, applications will close on April 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern. So good luck, everyone. And if there are any technical questions as you go through the application process, feel free to reach out to us. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.